Senator Lopez Polito. Senator Cervantes. Senator Chua.
Here.
Senator Lee. Senator Sadiq. Senator Abdul Sadiq
Here. Senator Kifas.
is present. Senator Nelson. Senator Damavandi. Senator Yan.
Here.
Senator Lim.
Here.
She is no longer senator. Senator Liu.
Here.
Senator Withrow.
Here.
Senator Gunaman.
Present.
Senator Sabah.
Here.
Senator Kuriakos.
Here.
Senator Munoz. Senator Math.
Yep.
Senator Artunian. Senator Archbold.
Here.
Senator Sanhu.
Here.
Senator Nakvi.
Here.
Senator Krebs.
Here.
Senator Gill.
Here.
Senator Martinez. Senator Chi.
Here.
Senator Ubu.
Here.
Okay, with that quorum is at 19, we'll move on to approval of the minutes. If there are no objections, I'd like to approve two previous meetings minutes. Seeing none objections, we're going to move on to approval of the agenda. At this time, were there any amendments to the agenda? Hearing and seeing none, we will move on to public comment. At this time, does any member of the public wish to speak? Hearing and seeing none, we will move on to item number 6, executive officer reports. Are there any executive officer reports at this time?
Yeah, so the Associate Justice application closed on Sunday, so we have 6 applications in total. So right now, just waiting to schedule them to be interviewed in front of Senate. So tonight at 8 p.m. to 9 p.m., there's Student Program and Funding Board and Winter Info Night at Emerald Bay A. The food will be provided, so all the clubs are welcome to go there to learn about the funding process. Research Network Night is February 13th, 6 to 8 p.m. at Doheny Beach A. So it will be an opportunity for researchers to network with students. What else? Oh, and regarding the committees formed after the death of Noah Domingo, so I was informed by Sherwin that I will be on that committee. We haven't met yet, but to let you all know.
Any more reports at this time?
So I finished hiring my core staff, and 3 out of the 5 are here today to be presented during business day.
Any other further reports? Seeing none, we will move on to item number 7, special committee reports. There are no special committee reports at this time. Moving on to item number 8, whole business, tour Office of the Student Services Vice President Budget Report.
Okay, so apologize for missing last Thursday's. My neck went over the somebody. I was going off my budget. It's a little hard to read, so I'm sorry. There's a lot of line items. The first account order is my office account. Nothing's changed other than the last one except for this specific subsection with trading or taking food. I just got my office staff food or like cupcakes and reading those incentives from birthdays and stuff like that. So that's the only thing that's changed since last time. Goodness. Welcome week, we're pretty much done and closed out. We are about 12-ish K in the red. So we're going to cover that with my shop cost, which I will go on to the next slide. For shop, we got pretty much all our final bills and statements. We are about 19K in the black. Cover my 12K for welcome week, and that will remain about like 5-ish. These are very rough numbers, 5-ish K will go towards summer months. So that is how I'm going to cover my 12K in red for welcome week. And then for homecoming, that is next week. We're still processing some charges for like advertising, stuff like that. So those are not in there yet. The only charge in there right now is for t-shirts. It's about $4,000, $4,169. That is just the shirts here. We wrote 1,000 shirts. They're about $3 and some cents a shirt, plus tax, plus like all this other fees, so everything like 4K. What's it called? So these shirts are distributed throughout the week. We do them Monday through Friday at the Streets of Terrace, 11 to 12, people play games, and then like a fourth of the shirts are distributed on Saturday at actual movie festival. So that's what those are. And the rest of those program costs are going to be like food, games, and activities that my staff will be presenting are doing next week on the terrace. Solstice, it's blank. It's coming up. We're starting to do stuff for that now, but we haven't really got any charges yet. But main charges, it's kind of hard to see stuff obviously, but the main charges will be like facilities, like we budget like 60K for that, like working with them. That's going to be other charges, like program costs will be things such as like food for the judges, for the talents. It'll be like miscellaneous supplies, like small things like wristbands and stuff like that. And then advertising is like our posters, our Facebook ads, because we like do sponsored ads. We did like stickers for coffee sleeves for like Zoppingo, so that's like stuff. That's what's going to be advertising. And yeah, I think that's my last one as well. I know that really fast. Are there any questions?
Is there any questions, concerns? We have 7 minutes and 30 seconds.
I was wondering if you could share that on the Senate Facebook?
Oh yeah, now that I have all of them, I was gonna make a post about all budget reports now. I was gonna post it, yeah. No, I'll do it right now, but so, try to do it.
We can do it during,
Yeah.
committee breakouts.
I'll do it later. Any other questions, concerns?
I forgot if I mentioned this with you or asked it with you, but with the 12K in, with the welcome week, or how it sounds, what was the main cause for that?
The biggest one was we ended up having to spend about 20K for staff pro that we didn't really take into account for our world record event. So, given us new rules and regulations, one of them was to have like actual, not security sort of judges, I guess, non-affiliated people to like monitor the show, monitor the event. Previous years they didn't need to do that, so like in previous years we had like Mike's office interns, or like last time we did this we did dodgeball. We had like a professional dodgeball team, like the not the exact term, but it's not judges, but it's people monitoring the game, make sure everything's like all rules followed. But this year they're more strict about it, so we have to hire staff because it's getting big affiliated at least we see all the school. So that was 20K.
Any other questions, concerns? Seeing none? Thank you for your report. We're going to move on to the next item on the agenda. Allure Ledimla Richmond Tour B54-10 Budget Reallocation for 2018-2019 ASUCI Commitment to a Better Education Scholarship. 10 minutes. Since it's already been read, there's no need to read it again. If there are no objections, I'd like to open this up for discussion.
I think IDP should consider maybe opening up another account for this, and then it'll come in the future as well. Because I don't want this to die. I think this is something that's something great that APSEC can continue. I'm just a little worried that next year, the next IDP will they use this or things like that. So I think putting an account number for it would be great. An APSEC scholarship. Was that ever like?
That's actually the.
Oh, it is?
Yeah. So it says therefore let it be resolved that a new budget line item
wow.
for the scholarship be created under executive cabinet. But in terms of sustaining the scholarship, it's really impossible for us to create something long-term because it's very contingent upon the executive officers that are elected every year. But obviously, when we transition out, we're gonna advise next year's executive cabinet to have. Sorry.
Is there any other questions, concerns? Julie, can you say the vote on how this was voted on? Or-
Yeah, I believe it was 5-0.
Yeah. questions or concerns?
I did also.
It was unanimous, so.
If there are no questions or concerns, I would recommend to move to previous question. Are there any objections? Motions on the floor? I can't assume that motion.
Motion to call question by roll call?
Second.
It has been moved and seconded to call B 54-10 by roll call. Is there any objection? Hearing and seeing none? Will you please call roll?
No, I don't like no call. Thank you.
Senator Cervantes, Senator Chua,
Yes.
Senator Lee,
Yes.
Senator Siddiq,
Yes.
Senator Abdul Siddiq,
Yes.
Senator Quintas votes yes. Weird. Senator Nelson, Senator Damavandi, Senator Yan,
Yes.
Senator Lim,
Yes.
Senator Liu,
Yes.
Senator Withrow,
Yes.
Senator Gooneman,
Yes.
Senator Saba,
Yes.
Senator Kuriakos,
Yes.
Senator Munoz, Senator Mass,
Yes.
Anhu, Senator Nakvi,
Yes.
Senator Krebs,
Yes.
Senator Gill,
Yes.
Senator Martinez,
Yes.
Senator Chi,
Yes.
Senator Ubu.
Yes.
The motion passes.
With that, B 54-10, budget reallocation for 2018-2019 ASUCI commitment to a better education scholarship, passes. Moving on to item number 3, Gooneman Withrow, R 54-51, bylaw amendment, rolling over of Senate committee chairs and vice chairs. Since this has already been read before, if there are no objections, I'd like to open this up for discussion as well. Seeing none, discussion is now open. Are there any questions, concerns? Do you have a question?
I have a side question related to this.
That's fine.
So, just making sure, finance chairs, the $25 or more, correct? Per month?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, not finance.
Oh, and
committee.
chairs, Senate chair, yeah, yeah,
Committee chairs.
all committee chairs.
Basically, committee chairs, presidents are important and president, that's
Uh-huh.
$25 more.
That's,
Yeah. I'm just wondering for other committee chairs, have you been getting the extra $25? Cause I have not.
I have no idea. Yeah, okay, yeah, that is kind of a side question.
Whoa.
Is that like a really side
Yeah, that was a really
question?
side question.
Okay, motion to call the question by acclamation.
Is there a second? It has been motioned to call by acclamation. There has been more than one sufficient second. Are there any objections to call R 5451 to question by acclamation? Seeing none? Motion passed.
No, you have to call.
Oh, acclamation.
Dude.
Right. All those in favor of passing R 54-51, raise your hands now, please. All those against?
Oh, that's right, I have to vote. I'm sorry. Not you needed to.
All those in favor? All those against? Oh no, I already said, all those against? Any abstentions? Motion passes. Moving on to item number 9, new business. Withrow Martinez, R 54-53, appointment of 2018-2019 SAG core staff. Would the, it's new business, right? So would the reader please give a reading? I mean, the author please give a reading.
Whereas in the ACCI bylaws, Article 17, subsection D, subsection 11 states, under their authority as head of the office, the Student Advocate General is responsible for educating the student body about students' rights, university and ASUCI policies, laws, regulations, and procedures, and to promote awareness of the availability of advice and representation services offered by the Student Advocate General pursuant to this section. Whereas in the ASUCI Constitution, Article 9, Section 3, subsection B, subsection 7 through 9 states, under their authority as head of the office, the Student Advocate General has the power to set the staff composition of the office not defined in this Constitution, to administer the office's budget as approved by the Senate, to delegate matters to others in the office as needed. Whereas in the ASUCI Constitution, Article 9, Section 4, subsection A states the Student Advocate General may hire staff for the office which is not defined in this Constitution, but the Senate must confirm any staff who receive a stipend. Whereas ASUCI Student Advocate General Daniel Martinez has laid out the vision and plans for his office in conjunction with student government and student media executive director Stephanie Van Ginkel. Whereas these plans include the hiring of 2 more paid staff, core staff positions, student conduct caseworker and academic caseworker. Therefore, let it be resolved that the following students be confirmed for their respective positions as members of the staff of the ASUCI Office of the Student Advocate General and afforded all privileges associated with such appointments. Daniel Palafox, Internal Student Advocate General, Tran To, External Student Advocate General, Zach Seen, Chief Accountability Officer, Constance Lin, Student Conduct Caseworker, Diana Aguda, Academic Caseworker. Therefore, let it be resolved that the above students remain appointed and confirmed for their respective positions as member of the staff of the ASUCI Office of the Student Advocate General for the academic year 2018-2019.
Okay, discussion is now open.
So I've got 3 out of the 5 core staff members here. So these are all really great people. I chose them because they're all very passionate and they all possess exceptional leadership qualities. And yeah, if they don't have any questions or concerns. Oh, sorry, Dan Palafox over there in the middle, and then Tranco, and then Saxon.
You wanna do like we did before, give them a minute to introduce themselves?
Oh yeah, yeah.
If you would like to, you have a minute to introduce yourselves each. Just go up to the podium, whoever wishes to do so. Introduce yourself, your position.
Hi, my name is Zach Sin. I'm a second year. I'm a bio major. Kind of looking to just get another opportunity to be involved. Last year I joined Greek Life, and last quarter I joined TGIF, and that was a part of ASUCI. Now I'm just looking for another opportunity, and I'm looking forward to it, and working with everybody here. Thank you.
So hello everybody, my name is Daniel Palafox and I will be the internal student advocate general this year. I applied to this position because I was really passionate about the law, not only that, but also with working with students to advocate their rights. So I look forward to working with everyone here. I know that everyone here brings something special to this meeting, and I look forward to seeing that in everybody.
Hi, I'm Tran. I'm a second year biz admin major. I also am minoring in political sciences and global sustainability. I joined ASUCI because I wanted to make a difference in our community, and I'm very passionate about helping other people, and that's something that I've always wanted to do in high school and now, and I feel like this is a really good opportunity for me to go and do that, and I want to leave a good legacy behind.
Thank you. Are there any questions for the interviewees, the proposal? If there are no questions or concerns, my recommendation is to call the question.
Motion to call motion.
Hold up. I'll recognize Senator. No, I was like, which one? You said it at the same time.
Yeah.
I'll just do it. And is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Are there any objections to calling R5453 into question? Hearing, seeing none. Oh, what question by what? Acclamation? Acclamation. Are there any objections to calling R5453 by acclamation? Seeing none. All those in favor of passing said resolution, please raise your hand now. All those against? Any abstentions? Seeing and hearing none, your staff is confirmed. Congratulations. Moving on to item number 2. Saba Lee, R 54-55, amendment of the bylaws to clarify legislation. Would the author please give a reading?
Whereas the ASUCI Senate is an elective body that represents its constituents, whereas one of the ways that the ASUCI Senate represents its constituents is by writing at least one legislation every quarter, whereas the Article 3, Section A, Subsection 2, Clause B, Subsection 3 of the ASUCI bylaws states each senator shall introduce and execute at least one legislation per quarter and shall be a second on one other legislation per quarter. Whereas there is very little description in the bylaws about the parameters and requirements of the legislation that must be introduced and executed. Whereas there have been several legislations submitted that are clearly copied from previous legislations. Whereas there have been several legislations submitted that have been full of mistakes that make the clauses redundant and ineffective. Therefore, let it be resolved that such legislations as introduced and executed should not be counted towards the requirement for the ASUCI Senate. Therefore, let it be resolved that Article 3, Section A, Subsection 2, Clause B, Subsection 3 of the ASUCI bylaws be amended to read: each senator shall introduce and execute at least one legislation per quarter and shall be the second on one other legislation per quarter. These legislations should fulfill the following requirements. This legislation should be less than 50% a copy of a previous legislation of the last 20 years, not including references to other legislations. This legislation should contain no more than 3 major errors defined as an instance of an error, including but not limited to inconsistencies within the legislation, wrong dates, wrong names, and titles of organizations. Capitalization is not a major error under this definition. And then this legislation should not fall under one of the following categories: appointment of any ASUCI position or the quarterly formation of committees. And therefore, let it be resolved that if any section of the above clauses are so found to be unconstitutional by the judicial board following review, the clauses which are not found unconstitutional shall remain in effect and the numbering adjusted to account for the removed clauses.
All right. If there are no objections, discussion is now starting. Questions?
Oh my God.
Evan, Kyriakos, Goodman.
It's more of a statement than rather than a question. So I'd like to say to everyone right now within this room, we're beginning a discussion on a very, very highly debated topic. So just remember that this is an amendment. We need to send this to rules first. So keep that in mind before you start making enemies within this room, please. It's only winter quarters. Please don't make enemies now. I'm not being serious here.
Kyriakos.
Yeah, just a question. Why was it decided for 3 major errors? And also, like, what would be the consequence of making those errors and then submitting it?
So, 3 was sort of random. I didn't want it to be like one major error because everyone makes mistakes. So I did 3 such that if you have like 3 major errors within the legislation, the chances you haven't proofread it as much, and if you do have 3 major errors, then it would not count towards one of your legislations. So you'd have to do another legislation for it to count.
Yeah, we had Goodman. Do you?
It says here that this legislation should be less than 50% a copy of a previous legislation of the last 20 years. So, is the rules committee gonna check for every legislation if there are like copies of like legislation from 20 years ago?
No.
I feel like it's
How are we
usually
going to
pretty
enforce
obvious
this
if it's copied or not, because we have a ton of legislations that are sort of, I don't want to speak.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, so that are very standardized, so you can pretty much figure out okay, this is the topic of the legislation, are there previous ones, and most of us here have seen enough legislations at this point to know the 4 or 5 or more different types. So those
Okay.
are most legislations.
So I saw Julie, then Michael, Lincoln. Oh no, I saw Tanya. So Tanya, then you.
Wait, Jonathan.
Oh, Jonathan.
Oh.
Do you want?
Jonathan, go ahead. Can't see the whole one. Go ahead, Jonathan.
So just a quick question regarding the category of quarterly formation of committees. So would that be essentially?
Hold up, excuse me, with that time has expired.
Motion to extend time by 5 minutes.
Are there any objections?
I move to amend his motion. Okay. I move to amend his motion to extend time to 15 minutes.
Second.
Are there any objections to amending his motion? Seeing none, it has been amended to 15 minutes. Are there any objections to extending time by 15 minutes? Seeing none, time is extended by 15 minutes. Let me do that real quick. Okay. Yeah.
So regarding the category of quarterly coordination of committees, would that essentially be anything that proposes like the timeline, or would you be able to kind of clarify that a little bit more?
Most likely the quarterly information copy of a previous one, because we state like, okay, this is the committee that we're doing, here's the chair, here's the vice chair, here are all the members. So this is referring specifically to that legislation. So it actually shouldn't even pass the first part, but this is more specifically because it is something we do every quarter anyway. And then it'd be just for like the 4 major committees under this section.
Okay. Julie, you're next.
Yeah, so I have a couple of comments. So the first one, already?
There's another one.
This is 50% of the copy. I know you said it might be obvious, like it's gonna be obvious, but I mean, if it's in the bylaws, then I think that would make it so that the rules committee or J board would have to look at 20 years of legislation and bills. So I don't think that's very feasible and necessary. Also, just because it's copied, like just because it's copied, that doesn't mean it's not necessary for like this quarter. Like maybe there was a bill or legislation that didn't pass before, but then you want to try again, or someone else want to try again. I don't think that means like it should be worth the mandatory one legislation that we make per quarter. Also, when it says like 3 major errors, I don't think we should take them so badly if they make the wrong date. Like sometimes they just make mistakes from 2018, 2019, and that happens a lot. So, and I would also like to hear what inconsistencies with the legislation that you can recall, because I'm trying to recall some, but I can't think of any specific ones. So I would also like to hear like why you included that. And the points about like appointment of any ASUCI position for formation of committees, well, we kind of have to do that. And I think appointment of any ASUCI position, at least that one should be included to be part of the like, one legislation per quarter, because are you putting that in because like that just is like a regulatory thing that we need to do? Yeah, so that's a lot of common questions, but I guess like my first question is, what inconsistencies within a legislation, like how many, can you recall any instances like that?
I recall there was one last quarter that I think it was like the amount of money. This has happened a couple times where I think the amount of money was like inconsistent. So like one place they said here this, one place they said another place, and if you're using numbers, most of the legislation that includes numbers only includes like a few. So if you're inconsistent within like 5 numbers, that's pretty bad.
Can you keep going?
What was your other question?
Oh yeah, no, can I comment on that?
Sure.
Well, there might be inconsistencies, but we could always just amend those, and I think it's because you think the person didn't like double check it and stuff like that, but then having to reject that and then having to wait again, like this system is already like super slow already, and I don't want to like slow it down more just because like they're all the numbers like didn't like their dates or numbers were like incorrect in some areas. Maybe there was just like a mistake made, but I don't think you have to shut that down and create a whole legislation again and have to wait the amount of days you need to wait to put it on the floor again. And if it is number, that probably includes bills, which means the finance committee has to go through that, so it'll take, it just takes a longer time. So I think this will slow down
our process even more than in. But this legislation has nothing to do with passing the legislation at all. This legislation only has to do with the fact of, does it count towards the required legislation? Like, the legislation will still continue, even if it has the errors, even if they're fixed, it'll continue through the process as a normal legislation. The only difference is that certain legislations would not be counted towards, so it would force like every senator to come up with something else to do, which will not slow down the process, but will rather like make it so that we have more legislation stacked to things. Like, for example, last quarter, like, a lot of times we ended early, which is kind of weird, but I feel like part of it might be the fact we don't have legislation, or it just might be the way that we do things. We might be that efficient. Like, I know on my own, like last quarter, I think the legislation I did was an appointment of a senator. That was my one legislation. And personally, I feel like, yes, I could do that, but that is kind of like, oh, you know, like it's literally like copy, paste, change 5 things, and submit it. So I think that should not be allowed as our legislation of the quarter, since our goal as senators is to represent the constituents, and if we're literally doing like stuff we do like normally and just copy, paste, and send, and that's the legislation, that should not count towards it. But that does not mean it's not a proper legislation that's going to happen. Does that sort of make sense?
Yeah, so the legislation will still go through, but it just wouldn't count for them.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I'm gonna move on to another person on the speakers list. Michael, you had a comment?
Okay, first of all, we have Grammarly, now we need Turnitin work. And JBOL will probably not pass it because they don't want to look back 20 years anyway. And also, we just had a constitution in 2009. Any legislation before that is kind of pointless. Also, I think that 3 major error thing could be removed because it's such a pain to define it. Every time we see something wrong in legislation, we think, is it major? I think it would be extremely difficult to execute. I have no problem with the rest of the legislation. I think it's a good idea that actually forces senators to be productive.
So, yeah, okay, so I think to your 20 years thing, I mean, you have a very solid point. The 3 major errors, like how many legislations are there, like, I'm thinking like all of last quarter, I think there was maybe 1 legislation or 2 legislations that we actually edited more than 1 thing. That wasn't like us having we edited more 1 thing, that we edited more than 3 things. And it wasn't just like us having a conversation and like we disagree with something in it. It was like actually like, oh, there was something kind of wrong and weird there. Like, I think there was like 1 legislation all of last quarter that had more than 3 things that we edited like that.
Yeah, just think counting it would be weird when we read it.
Okay, moving on to the next item on the speaker, Sanjana.
2 things. I agree with Julie in terms of removing the 50% copy of previous legislation and the major errors one. I just think we should be more constrictive in terms of appointment legislations and formation of committees. Just out of the 69 items on or 69 legislative items that we have for this academic year, 22 of them were appointments and about 10 of them were formation of committees. So that's 32. So we've had 35 or 36 of other sorts of legislation, and out of that, most of them are budgetary legislations too. So we haven't done any like solid like advocacy work. So I think we should only limit like appointment and formation of committees.
Okay, next speaker, Senator Nelson.
I had a comment about the legislation to be 50% of the copy in the last 20 years. I think maybe, I don't know, this is personally my opinion, but maybe we could remove that but instead place in effect like a different kind of restriction, whereas, I don't know, you could have the person who seconded the legislation, like overview it and like make sure, like, I don't wanna say like, or I guess like kind of proofread, but make sure that it's not, you know, something, maybe they spotted it and it's like super similar to a different legislation, so that way you just have an extra set of eyes for
So right now, the session that's supposed to do is chapter that.
But no meetings.
The other one of the seven.
Was that, are you concerned?
Yeah, I just think, yeah, also it's, I don't know, everyone's kind of addressed it in my ways, but, well.
Okay, so next we have Kinka.
So in terms of the legislation, there are 3 things that I want to mention. The first is that, one, my concern with this is going to be the same concern that has been displayed the entire school year, is that when we start letting, when we create legislations that are vague or can be interpreted as vague and does not actually create an effective mechanism to verify this in terms of, so there's nothing on here about who's actually going to do this, that leaves that responsibility to the judicial board. And unfortunately, I must state that I disagree a lot with some of the decisions they've written, not in terms of the decision they reached, but how they've reached those decisions. I don't think they've been analyzing the constitutionality of the things they did. They've been talking about a lot about intent of legislations, what our legislative priority was in passing these things. And unfortunately, the vagueness we have in legislations leaves them that room to sort of interpret what we're doing. And unfortunately, I don't think the Senate should leave room for interpretation. Our legislation should be clear and definitive and should explicitly state out everything that we're going to do. The second part, and I brought this up to Senator Whitrow today, is that I don't actually think there's an
Sorry,
effect.
can you stop at the first part? Is it possible for someone to bring up the bylaws? Can you bring up the bylaws on the screen? Okay, continue.
The second thing, and I had this conversation with Senator Whitrow today, is that I don't actually think there's an effective record of every legislation we've passed in the last 20 years. As you all know, in the Senate room, there's about like 400 binders in there with several pieces of paper inside of them, but I don't actually know what's in there. And I don't think anybody in this room can actually raise their hand and say they do know what's in all of those binders. And then third, while I respect Senator Saba's intent with this legislation, I must respectfully disagree with her. I think this creates too much bureaucracy for the Senate. I must respectfully disagree with Vice President Eller. If you are all looking to do advocacy in the Senate, that is your prerogative. But if students don't actually agree with what we're doing, they have a mechanism. It's called elections. You just will not be reelected, or they'll come to the Senate and they'll complain about what we're doing. But until that happens, the Senate is the legislative body. Part of our job is just confirming people to positions. That's what the Senate does. If you go back to 2016, they spent an entire month confirming President Trump's cabinet nominees. That's part of our job. Some may disagree with that prerogative, but I think it's a fundamental role. So I most respectfully disagree with this legislation, and I will be voting no.
Moving on to Withrow.
So I guess I kind of,
I want to respond to his first point. Like, I also want to like make sure that it is clear in the bylaws. So,
What would you like me to
where does
control
it
that?
state who enforces the legislation? If someone does not enforce the legislation in the quarter, where is that written in the bylaw?
That would be constitution. That would be powers.
Okay.
Yeah.
Then,
Oh,
yeah.
yeah.
'Cause that one's a very valid point, and I want to make sure that's there. So where it says,
We'd have to look over. I mean, I think that's like a bigger question as in like, we'd have to actually read that up and talk about that. Maybe a separate discussion, 'cause
so what is the question?
like who, when we pass legislation, who's supposed to enforce it? Or
no,
who
it's
finishes
who
it up?
enforces whether or not we pass legislation. So there is a mechanism in place. Okay, so if a senator doesn't enforce legislations, then someone has to do something.
Is there a mechanism?
Like, no, so
If
there's
you
no.
don't follow up, no one will follow up. If you pass something and you don't follow it, then yeah, most likely, there's no mechanism that forces someone to do something. Unless it's a J4 rule.
Okay, so going up to my point is, what I want to say is, I kind of have to concur with Senator Quintas in that I think this legislation does have a good intent, because we do have a problem where legislations have been plagiarized. We saw that even this year. But I think the way this legislation is structured is, it's too vague, firstly. I don't think it would pass scrutiny by judicial board because Number one, because of the vagueness, and also because I think it leaves too many holes in the way it's written. And so I think that if we really want to prevent the issue that senators are copying legislation, it is something that maybe might be worthwhile taking a look at, but I don't think this legislation would necessarily be the right way to go about it, because I don't think it would pass judicial scrutiny.
So that we, and the talking list, is there anyone else now who would like to repeat? Actually, I haven't seen Gooderman or Archbold, so I'm gonna let them go, and then we have first on repeat, Sandra, and then Keith.
I think it's Archbold, because I spoke.
You've spoken before? Okay, with that time is expired,
Motion to extend time by 2 minutes.
would you like?
Nobody seconded the motion, so it's not about the motion.
Second.
Okay, it's been motion to extend time by 2 minutes. Are there any objections?
Motion to amend his motion,
What's your amendment to the motion?
to amend to extend time by 10 minutes.
Second.
Second. Are there any objections to amend the motion to move it to 10 minutes? Seeing no objections, are there any objections to extending time by 10 minutes? Seeing and hearing none, we will start. Okay, Archbold?
Awesome, yeah. I also really like the intent of this legislation to create like actual more change inside of Senate. I totally get that. I do think that the 50% of a copy will be very, very difficult to enforce. So I find laws that can't be enforced to be not laws at all, myself. And then when it goes into like no more than 3 major errors, as a new senator myself, I think it might de-incentivize newer senators to make as many legislations as they could, because they'd be just so focused on the one legislation, trying not to make any errors. And it might actually backfire on the intent that I know was made in this legislation. And that could last for years if put into place. As well as appointment of ASUCI positions. Also, it's something we have to do. I agree with Senator Quintas on this. But as far as quarterly formation of committees, maybe we should leave that in there, because like that's something we do once every quarter. It takes like 5 minutes. It's not really that serious.
Yeah, right here it says to confirm, reject using guidelines of the ASUCI bylaws, commissions, and departments created by executive officers, and then right above, to confirm, reject appointments made by executive officers. It's actually a constitutional obligation. You can't limit those legislations. We had Sanjana, second.
I yield my time.
All right, after that, we had Gooderman, a second time.
Yeah, since I agree with Rodrigo that there might be, and actually Liam, I agree with Liam that there might be like loopholes in the legislation. I suggest that we, instead of discussing about this, which I predict will never gonna end, we just commit to rules and let rules decide.
Okay.
So if everyone agrees, I'll motion to commit to rules.
Second.
It's been motioned and seconded to commit this legislation to rules. Are there any objections?
Objection.
Would you like to state your
I
objection?
disagree with the consideration of this legislation. By extending it to rules, we're just continuing a debate that I believe has been had. I don't believe in the purpose of this legislation, and I will be voting no.
Are there any other objections? Would you like to state your, could you state your own objection in the minutes? And we will be moving this legislation to rules. Moving on to the next item, Withrow Lopez Pulido Saba, B54-11, freezing of the accounts of the Office of Student Services.
Whereas Article 3, Section A, subsection 2, subsection A, subsection 5, clause F of the bylaw states, the Student Services Vice President shall be required to present to the ASUCI Senate a breakdown of her budget expenditures on a bi-quarterly basis on the Thursday of week 3 and week 7. These presentations shall not exceed 10 minutes in length and be presented in an electronic medium or through a typed report that will be distributed to each senator. If the executive chooses to do a typed report over a presentation, they will dedicate their time to being questioned for up to 10 minutes by the senators after senators view the executive's report. The presentation or report shall include a detailed understanding as to what the funds are being used for and why. This presentation or report shall cover all recent budget expenditures of this office for the month, a breakdown of the remaining funds in each individual account that is under this office, the final standing or projected final standing of each individual account, and the overall budget standing for this office. Whereas Article 6, Section 2, subsection H states, the Senate has primary policy-making legislative authority and final administrative authority for ASUCI, and under this authority has the power to temporarily freeze an office's accounts if financial reports are not given regularly and promptly, as described in the ASUCI bylaws. Whereas on the 24th of January 2019, the Student Services Vice President did not deliver a budget report, whereas reasonable attempts have been made to contact the Student Services Vice President and no response has been received, whereas all the accounts of the Office of Student Vice President are listed below. 7400, Student Service Vice President. 7400-6012, stipend. 7400-6014, benefits. 7400-6103, office supplies. 7400-6307, PR liability insurance. 7400-6406, advertising and publicity. 7400-6408, training orientation food. 7400-6420, contingency. 7405-4443, advertising market income. 7405-6503, credit card fees. 7405-6406, advertising publicity. 7405-6410, entertainment. 7405-6412, facilities. 7405-6423, program cost. 7415-4443, advertising market income. 7415-4620, ticket sales. 7415-6404, publicity and advertising. 7415-6410, entertainment. 7415-6412, facilities and equipment rental. 7415-6423, programming costs. 7425-6404, advertising and publicity. 7425-6412, facilities and equipment rental. 7425-6423, program cost. 7435-4620, ticket sales. 7435-6406, advertising and publicity. 7435-6410, entertainment. 7435-6412, facilities and equipment rental. 7435, program cost. 7455-6111, program prior year expenses. 6455-6423, program cost. 6465-6423, program cost. 7475-4443, advertising and marketing income. 7475-4620, ticket sales. 7475-6303, credit card fees. 7475-6404, advertising and publicity. 7475-6412, facilities and equipment rental. 7475-6423, program costs. Therefore, let it be resolved that the accounts of the Office of the Student Services Vice President be frozen until a budget report is delivered to the Senate.
If there are no objections, discussion is now open. Is that a motion?
Yes, I move to postpone indefinitely.
There's been a motion to postpone indefinitely. Is there a second?
Second.
Are there any objections to postponing this legislation indefinitely? Seeing and hearing none, it's postponed indefinitely. Was this a motion?
This was a comment.
Comment?
Yes. Can that motion be made before you read the entire legislation next time? Please.
I mean, I was on.
I mean, out of order. I mean, it was on the agenda, so he does have to read it by our bylaws.
Could we have suspended the rules, knowing that we were not going to consider the
Could have made that
legislation?
motion before. I'm just saying, I had to go to the restroom, so it was bad timing on everyone's part. You could have made the motion prior. You knew it was on the agenda.
Yeah, I followed the bylaws. So.
Yeah. Moving on to item number 4, Lopez Pulido, withdraw, R54-57, Tenant Intro Program Special Committee formation. I shift again, because I'm gonna talk on this. Whereas the Constitution of the Associated Students of the University of California, Irvine, Article 6, Section 3, Subsection 2, Duties, Letter G, provides the authority of the President of the Senate to call special task forces when necessary or needed. Whereas ASUCI Bylaws, Section 3, Subsection B, Senate Provision, Subsection 1, Letter A, Number 9, gives the responsibility for the oversight, development, and operations of the Senate Intern Program, should say, to the Senate President. Whereas the Senate Intern Program does not affect the office of the Senate President, but the Senate as an institution, and the Senate Intern Program has not been used to the full extent of its potential. Whereas under the bylaws, Section 14, Subsection A provides that advocacy committee shall be concerned with the activities and projects of all Senate ad hoc committees, and that the academic year's advocate agenda. 1, the committee shall be responsible for A, reviewing the creation of ad hoc committees. Each ad hoc will present a proposal advocacy committee, which will include the following. 1, the name and general purpose of the ad hoc committee. 2, the names of 2 or more fellow senators who wish to participate in the ad hoc committee. The number of names will be determined by the scope of the ad hoc. 3, the names possible non-Senate partners to the fulfillment of the ad hoc committee's projects. 4, proposal of individual projects, if applicable, for the fulfillment of each ad hoc committee's mission statement. Therefore, let it be resolved that the President of the Senate wishes to initiate a special task force tasked with amending and evolving the scope of the Senate Intern Program. The name of the special committee shall be Senate Intern Program Special Committee. Now will be referenced as SIPS. Therefore, let it be further resolved that membership of the SIPS committee be Saul Lopez Pulido, Chair, Andrea Martinez, Sofia Munoz, Brian Gunneman, Sharon Archibald, Kusum Naqvi. Therefore, let it be finally resolved that all Senate interns shall be ex officio members of the committee.
All right. Is there an objection to open to discussion?
Is there any questions for me?
I got a question.
Yeah.
So how do you decide every member of this committee?
So the way I decided was, I asked the chairs, pretty much like who would impact, or like, also I made this decision in 2 ways. Impact of the committee and the quality of information that they're gonna provide for this. I also chose people who are new and would provide a fresh perspective on something. I didn't want someone who would provide institutional knowledge in this respect, because if I keep providing people with institutional knowledge in this respect, we're gonna keep going around in a circle, and we're never gonna get any solutions to this problem. We're gonna keep wanting to continue it as it's always been, but just amend it a little bit. But that's not what I would want. I would want this to be functional and not temporary. I don't want a temporary solution anymore for this problem. I want it to be a functioning part of the Senate. And I have my recommendations. I did a lot of work by myself, but I didn't want it to just be my own work, because this doesn't just affect, yes, it gives me the authority to do so, but I didn't want it just to be my work. I wanted it to be like a Senate committee's work. So I picked people who would bring an interesting perspective to the committee. The freshman senator was because the next year. So she's gonna be here when it goes into effect. Sophia, she volunteered. When I asked the chairs if they wanted to, she volunteered. Brian volunteered.
Well, I'm the only one who like.
Yeah.
I and Priyanka were the only people who like got entered.
Yeah.
This school year so far.
Yeah. He's actively used interns since last year. So I wanted to see his perspective on things he would like to see, because there's a lot of things we need to change. Title, duties. We need to create a long list of things. We'll keep it as is. As of right now, it's like a very short bylaw. It has like 3 sentences, and it just says I'm in charge of it. And I think we need to really make that so that it's consistent, so that they have more duties than to just do the camera, I think, or at the whims of senators. I want it to be instructional. I want it to be something other than just that. Sean volunteered as well, and Kusum volunteered as well. I also did it on a volunteer basis. I don't know if you got it on the chat. I asked all if there was any volunteers, and mostly volunteers, and also if they would bring a fresh perspective. Because I have knowledge of this thing, obviously. Liam has knowledge of this thing, but at the end of the day, me and him are graduating. I want it to be people who might rerun, who might actually be affected by this, which is why I did the freshman center, because they would actually see this. other questions?
I have a follow-up question or?
Yeah, sure.
We should
Oh,
give
yeah,
that
sorry.
CG Martinez.
Sure.
I want to ask the current Senate interns if they're willing and able to share their experiences as Senate interns, right? Senate interns. If they're willing and able to answer that question.
So as the only Senate intern?
No, there's
Oh, there is?
Yeah.
My only responsibility is setting up the camera.
She was here on time. Oh, now you were late.
Yeah.
You were late.
Bro, these are the video ones?
Oh, what's up? Jelly donuts. They're all good. Before, I was kind of weird. I was like, can I try it before I went? And he's like, no. Yeah. And I'm like, I was like, you never know until you ask. There you go.
Oh, no, I got it.
You can have another one. I got 50 cents, like 2 years.
No. Just one. Not very far.
You started good? But yes, yeah. Like in those committee reports, I want them to, because I know how it is. I want those committees to be like, they should be doing this, we should be doing this. This person should be in charge of this. Like, let's stop thinking about like restrictions as in like, you know, all the restrictions that politics does us, and start doing something like this.
If it passes, what exactly will happen? Is it gonna be like
A committee, and then and then I'm gonna call meetings to order, and I'm just gonna be going based on quorum. If you don't show up to those committee meetings, and you don't get to say your point of view, because you know that. Because I still have. I'll bring it back up. I'm gonna bring it back up. Basically, that's like the Senate president. That's my big thing I want to do this quarter. Because that's like a lot. I mean, I have a slew of things, but like this is the big one. It's not really a big deal. I just want to make it easier for Rodrigo for attendance. I don't think we should waste 3 minutes.
I mean, it's pretty vague.
You know what?
Mondays.
I have to see when I have no one to read. I was gonna say it wrong, and I was like, I don't want to be that guy.
It's okay.
Neither do I want to be like. No, I was just like.
I was like, wow, you're really good.
I thought you left. I was like, shit. No.
So you should be seeing it
Is it up?
in the next. Yeah, I'm posting. Oh, like dig. Yeah.
Like dig.
Like a dig. But now that I have
This is dig?
Yeah.
I was gonna say, I was gonna say it wrong, and I want to embarrass myself on camera. I did anyways, but.
I mean, they hear it now. I don't want it anymore. What kinds of ones are there? So, yes, what flavors do we serve? Go into stick, up into, I go up and that's where it's. Like, I'm confused.
You don't want to say please?
Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
It's not through donuts, man.
I touched it again.
Can you actually? You're good.
Thank you.
I was like, can I just donate money to you? He's like, where does the money go? And then I was like, I know I could have asked you, but I wanted to know the person I have. And I was like, he actually answered everything. He was really nervous for that. And then he saw it, he saw it, he's like, oh. And it was someone I had in class too. Okay. So he was literally like, I didn't know. I thought it was funny.
So, but going back from the year. Oh, okay, got it. It's the same thing. Girl Scout cookies I had, the action items. I know, I'm not flying. Yes. The s'mores are.
That's wrong.
Okay. Thank you, Patty. You should have Wait, first of all, do you know what to put? Yeah. Figure out how
Yeah, no,
do you think you could send like a ball of it? Okay, yeah, that would be
Really?
great. Yeah, we do. But I have Oh, okay. Like, strawberry. Wait, she hasn't responded back to that yet?
Yeah.
think a timer was Let's just,
Come on, it was 2 minutes, he's only 20. He always does that.
Wait, 10 more minutes? Okay.
Confirmed, it's been confirmed.
No, because every time I ask her, right?
Yeah.
That's it.
That's true. Yeah, we could. And then we can have
$5. I thought it was $5. And that way, so like, your time was good, but then also, you know, if you email in, you have a chance to.
Yeah, I know.
Or giveaway or whatever. And then, I think the timer, when, if we do that, then like, when we send the email, like,
Oh, no, that was,
no, I can actually.
they said at the same time, that was the 10 minutes
But I didn't
previous.
realize it was the same time.
Yeah, I know.
I said it. They said it in our account, and they just like, fire bill for this and expenses.
They already know.
Yeah, I'm thinking it's just like, our first like, oh, okay. They don't forget about us. They don't-
Yeah, she's 13 minutes.
And the attentions, right?
That was the previous 10 minutes, sorry.
But, okay, so if we were to do that, do we have a budget for it? And then like, or,
So regarding the legislation, like, so. You think if I introduce the proposal that added a bylaw to specify that.
what time is it again?
Would that be?
Yeah, oh, yeah.
I don't know.
It's not exactly.
Good luck.
But it is.
Yeah. And it's.
Cut them in half. It'd be super cheap. Cut them into forks.
It's actually good because
So if I can introduce. Yeah, because I mean, I was a bit on the fence.
Oh, no, I mean.
Wow, oh, yeah, okay.
I like 100.
Okay, yeah,
No, I was genuinely.
Oh.
I was genuinely, it was a genuine question. I was like, no. It's like, I didn't know, like.
Oh, yeah. No,
It's just because I was, especially after the debate
That's good, what's going
I get it, I get it.
Not that, she's very.
No, I get
No, you see? No, I mean, it's just.
You remind me of my mom.
Yeah.
Very sweet and gentle, and then you have.
Okay, so right now, we have cap it at $2 million, cap it at $2 million. We do it 25%.
No, he's a Catholic, Irish Catholic.
Okay.
Yeah, he knows. Right here, I don't think you set the timer right though. It went off like 5 minutes.
I'll get a black one. I'll get a black one. That's glazed, not blueberry.
This is like, relax.
That's chocolate glazed.
Oh.
That's blueberry.
You have to put it at least like. Whatever percentage you guys.
Which one you want?
Not many here. Oh, wait, no, this is gonna regulation, right?
Don't let him talk to you. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Taking number 2 spot.
Oh, the email?
How was karaoke? We didn't go because we want to do a once you meet, we want to go. And then I realized it'd be a little bit, I wasn't going to be serenading. So let's say serenading. Excuse me. Self-control.
So serious.
Just do it already.
And the white ones are how?
No, they're jellyfish. No, they're cocaine.
Dude, it's on camera.
That's why I laughed sarcastically.
You lost me. You lost me.
Let me explain. So let's say we have this, like,
Is your first language Spanish or English?
let's say we have like 100,000, right?
I think this is Spanish.
Is your first language Spanish?
Spanish.
So,
My parents taught me first, because you don't talk to anyone but your parents for the first 5 years of your life. And then I had my accent all the way to like 6th grade.
Okay,
And then it went away over time.
I think honestly, really?
Spanish.
It's probably way better than mine.
How do you get English as your first language? Your parents taught you English first?
In school you learn, my guy.
But it's because of Dora. Dora really
Like,
helps.
here's the point, like,
I learned a
you're
lot.
using interest and you're putting
And
it
then I
Oh,
pretty
the
sure.
whole
And then you go to school.
Dora, the whole series in China is translated into Chinese.
Okay.
So you don't learn
I think you should do that. No. Keep it that full, and then I went to whatever separate.
It just goes away recently.
I don't know if I
And
fixed
then
myself or
just maybe that up.
Oh,
Yeah.
We say like goal.
Yeah.
The goal is that we're not just building.
What happened with rules?
We're done.
We're done. What happened? We were missing the vice chair. We're missing a vice chair?
It's a
The
little.
vice chair. She's the vice chair. Wait.
Huh?
I am just the chair of Senate. I don't get to have two positions. So sad. You were absent.
Yeah, I'm taking the interest.
Yeah, I take two
And I
people
just
say.
take for, I think
We're
moving our one applicant to the next level.
I brought him.
I know.
Dare you judge me? What? You're what? Brought him?
No, that's in I
Brian?
Yeah. Seriously,
You want more?
I wanna try the blueberry one.
Yes, can I?
Okay.
When?
Don't take the chance. If you can. Just know which one.
I think it's that one, yeah. Take a fistful. And then
What's up with you and suing everyone? Senate does not condone the actions of its
A fistful of donuts.
for what day?
When do you want?
That's only 6 o'clock. ASAP. Where do you have, room?
I don't know. Can I do it right now?
Okay.
Isn't donut like that anyway? Donut is like food for Americans. Snacks for everyone else.
Is there anything that you
I think that's better with other flavors. Don't you get sick of all this?
Oh yeah,
I have sour.
I tried it.
I've had real food. Should I have it too? Yes, I got it.
Yeah, I actually skipped my because it's I can usually come on Tuesdays because
Well, honestly, there's $5 million. Rodrigo's been telling you guys that, right? You know, we haven't put you as half. I could get that, like, I keep, don't keep telling me you can tell me. So, yeah, like, you just have to make sure Rodrigo sees you. So that he'll do it. Because I have seen, I've only seen you like one day, like, that you haven't been here. But that was because you came late.
So they should be happening.
Yeah, they all should be.
Okay.
Most of them should be happening.
Okay, so as long as we can get that up.
To make sure Rodrigo sees you, because if not, we do understand.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So
No,
just
because I've seen this, but like, you have to let him know, but not, we just.
Okay, this one, that was the only thing that we saw when we were looking at town. Alright, thanks.
That's like, I know, because I've asked him. Yeah, he's on, he comes late, I'm like, I don't see him. This one looks cool. Like, say, hey, or like. So does everyone, is everyone okay with me doing this often, bringing food?
Yeah.
I'll take it.
I've heard Michael.
Are there still more? Are there? Michael, Sue. You're just hating, that's all. You're just don't hate. You're just gonna hate.
Nice try.
I saw you look at my
No, it's okay, I know you have a class.
That would have been the perfect time to talk.
No, it's good. Yeah, we still have 4 minutes.
It was like a jolly.
Julie, do you need
That's what I
like.
Yeah. You like blueberry? No, the jelly one was good.
Take out the food, take out your bag from the office.
They have to make sure
It's just like, because of where I am now, I don't see everyone, so I was doing what's on the menu.
and because it was the day we ended like at first, 20-something. It was one of those shows.
Yeah, I just want to figure it out because that was totally changed. I had an attendance plan. And so like, I wanted to make sure we get that resolved. So, and everyone else so far is still.
Yeah, at least you
Yeah, we
be like, hey, Rodrigo.
Okay, cool, either way, I can
Like normally if you motion me and you say hi, I go like, today I familiar. But normally I don't see you because I'm looking at you. I'm not trying to.
I was gonna say, I don't know where we're gonna do this. Happy hours at 9. Happy hours at 9. And we're on everything's half off. Everything's half off at 9. Yeah.
You have 3.
Like, regular people.
It's not the one they have 3.
Well, this is our chance.
Whatever you want. I'm just saying.
That's gonna be an interesting.
Six ends at 7:30. We'll probably only do like 8. If it's like 8:20.
There's
This is not what it says.
I'll give it to her. I'll give it to her.
Oh, you take care of it?
I'll take care
You'll
of it.
take care of it? Alright,
I'll take it.
what does everyone want next time? Mexican?
I don't even
Cream or cheese, sometimes I'll do
Okay, I'll help you. I probably saw your same class.
Camera down, camera down.
just hears, ooh.
Wait, so when are we planning on?
Sorry about that, my man.
That's okay.
Good thing that one didn't fall.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's say that like we fly by 8, get there at 8:10, 8:20. Either way, we're gonna get
That time is expired. I don't have two, I just have one. Okay, moving on to item number 12, committee reports for 5 minutes. We're gonna start with rules.
Alright, looking at attendance, there was one change in attendance that we resolved. So other than that, nothing to report in terms of attendance. In terms of applications, in terms of applications, we did get one applicant for the open engineering seat. Applications for both engineering and education center will close on Thursday. We currently have no applicants for the education center position, so that may be extended by 1 week. And in terms of legislations, R5454 passed 500.
Can you do me a favor, if they're not present or they're absent, or like if they're here and they're not getting the committee, can you start marking them as abstentions from that
Okay.
point on?
Okay, so then,
Because you're not-
502 then.
Yeah, no, like if they're not absent, as if they're absent, then they didn't vote, but if I'm here and I am not part of the voting, then you're, put me as an abstention.
Oh, okay, so
Yeah.
then my apologies, it'd be 501.
Yeah.
So you had one member absent?
Well, yes, Saul wasn't here for the vote.
Yeah.
But he's.
I was wrong. Okay, finance?
We are still trying to figure out, if you wanna roll over surplus money from the budget to that. That's pretty much it.
And so we will also talk to Stephanie and commissioners who didn't get paid last, like week 10. I mean,
Yeah.
not commissioners,
Committee
chairs who
chairs.
didn't get paid extra at week 10 will be paid like in the next payment. Right?
Yeah, so, it takes like 2 weeks, since they got reinstated or whoever got elected. So she said that you should probably see it by, the next pay period, and that whatever money that you've missed will come in as well.
Yeah, but this problem will not repeat because we just have to roll it over our
Yeah.
chairs.
And we also, submitted a bill, which will be coming on Thursday, about increasing stipends.
Thank you. Moving on to public relations committee.
Yeah, nothing too new this time. We're just waiting for people to get back to us for moving. We put in the orders for the table, and we also put in the order for scan plots and green books, so we're just waiting for the price on that. And we also found out that we can't make updates to the website for pictures until the end of this quarter, and also the one to me on Facebook. That's Sean.
For the photo shoots, for anyone who's interested in that.
Photo shoots, cool.
Yeah, let's go.
Is that a question for the committee?
Yeah, a question for the committee. How come y'all can't update the website?
Oh, I can answer that. There's multiple reasons why. For updating and putting the information with regards to just the pictures, it would require Aaron to do a lot of work. It's a lot harder for him to do it. It's more than just like, because when there's actual platforms like Facebook and all that stuff, they have an item or a location where they can just put the photo. The way it's structured right now in WordPress, either me or him would have to go put it in the selection. It's a very, like if you'd like, I show you after. You put in the picture and then you have to make it so that it fits perfectly with the information under you. And it's a little weird and it's very time consuming. So what he wants to do is he wants to modify the website so it makes it easier, but that requires, I guess, more time because he would have to just reorganize everything so it's easier to input everything. And he would rather have that as a permanent fix than just to us constantly just doing it every year, you know, doing the same thing. Yeah.
Thank you.
Nice explanation you gave me. I don't know if you.
Yeah, I also talked to Darren, the way he explained it to me is the way we, post legislations on the internal website. We would also be able to do for our pictures, our names, our office hours, everything. That way, when we would want something changed, we could go and do it ourselves. But also like Sol said, it's going to take a long time to do that, and these are backup projects. We can manually do it all right now, but we don't even have a time for the photo shoot set yet. We don't have photos for all the senators, so I'd say by the time we do, it's probably going to be ready to go and, start working on it. Thank you.
Okay, that time has expired for committee reports. I'm just gonna, there are no objections, I'm just gonna extend time by 3 minutes. Seeing none, extend time by 3 minutes. Advocacy information?
So we met up with Adrian Candido earlier, and he has the intent on representing on behalf of all Greek life, but he hasn't obtained the proper consent from all of the presidents, all of the different councils and stuff. So he will be meeting up with the director of Greek life along with the different presidents of the different Greek councils, and then he will reach back out to us to confirm. And also in regards to the legislation earlier, R5457 Senate Interim Special Committee Formation, we passed it 5-0-0.
Thank you. The one that was talked about today?
Yeah.
Okay, doesn't that have to be on the agenda for next time?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, okay, yeah, no, I mean, it's fine, but if it's not on the agenda for like that, you have to wait for the next meeting, it's just the way we've done it before. I think we're gonna stop doing that anymore, because the reason why we did it was because of, Brown Act.
Yeah.
And now, since we found out that we're not no longer under Brown Act, we don't have to, we can go back to how we used to do it.
I mean, normally, I can just,
Yeah,
cover,
go for
okay, the way I did it last quarter is, if there is a legislation that according on that committee agenda for that day, because it has to be submitted to that committee.
Okay.
Anyway, so we can do that just for transparency.
Okay, yeah, it's fine, no, you're all good. Moving on to, item number 13, immediate business, there is no immediate business. Moving on to school breakouts, 10 minutes. So the vote counts. It's weird, right? The vote counts because I voted on it. But do you want me to put it on the agenda, or do you want them to just do it again? I'm just thinking.
I mean, we're not under the Brown
We're
Act,
not,
so it's
that's why it's so
fine.
weird.
No, it's fine, if we're not under the Brown Act, then we can just do it like this, like I said, just, the way I did it last quarter is like, if something.
Next
has to
time I
go
should
to
just
committee,
see, like, if it's gonna go to committee, just put it there.
Yeah, because I mean, I kind of do it like that, like, in rules, because if something isn't under our committee agenda, we don't go over it that day, just,
Okay, so then,
you know, on the very, very, very small chance that someone in the public wishes to comment.
We just have to call to set up the appointment with the dean. We just have to call.
Oh, yeah.
So we can do that tomorrow. Pretty fast. And then we'll have.
Okay.
Who'd have thought? I asked to call her to set up another.
Yeah, sorry, I saw that and I forgot to reply. Yeah.
Well, I'll just call her, or I'll go in person.
So,
You saw the 3 sick votes on the Senate group? 3 sick votes on Senate group?
There was 3, but only one made it in the time frame that was.
Only Damavati votes.
Yeah, no, he didn't make it. We only got 8 by 3 o'clock. We need to have all 10 by 3 o'clock. The only one who made it was Sergio. He's the only one who made it by the time frame.
Are they all gonna be attending? What's your opinion on that?
Like,
You don't even have to make them.
that's not an idea, but
I know that it's a matter of like how it's gonna go executed in the end, because if it's half-assed, I'd rather not do it. So then you say that I just want to have
You don't have any. I was gonna ask you
like posters or like an email or.
I just forgot.
They can send the password.
Yeah, yeah.
What was that?
Like
this?
who they are.
Okay.
Is it,
I don't understand. Maybe some sort of video would be really cool. Like, right? Like, nice video, like right now, school senators that usually group them together.
let me know, like, for us, or
You remember electronic? What is it called?
Yeah, the best way to reach me is.
I chose to get in before going to work.
I'm gonna start a Senate poll. What do you guys want next?
Exercise.
We were discussing and we voted on McDonald's candidates.
Dude, I actually want to do that. I'm ordering like 100 chicken nuggets. It's like $20. And it's 100 chicken nuggets. Bring Julie like one vegan burrito. Wait. I don't know everyone's dietary restriction. You know
I'm
what?
pescatarian. I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
Is that where you're like negative about everything?
You want to show up late and make jokes?
Ooh, you know what? Oh shit! Bad boy. I'm hearing unexpected.
Yeah.
I wasn't even a half late. It was like 12 minutes late.
The dude should just take way too long. What do we do? Do you want to go tomorrow? Please sleep tonight? Because I want to see. Okay. I'll see. Yeah.
That's a really sick reason for wanting someone to do something healthy.
What?
He's like, get some sleep tonight so I can see you throw up when you work out.
It's gonna happen. It's gonna make it happen.
Wait, it has.
Because I really want to practice.
Work out.
Because he's like, oh,
No, because you're just gonna be doing nothing.
I know you.
It's gonna do nothing for you because your body's just gonna be like,
Your hair looks better when it's not in shape. Like just everywhere, it kind of looks better.
Michael, this is appropriate. That was right here. Okay.
Reading that they
You guys just don't talk about how they look. Is that why you have so many fat people? Do it. Oh, excited. I don't have it. You can talk to the international center. She's not gonna because you know downstairs of the entrance of downstairs library, that's a smoking spot.
no, but no, seriously. Oh, really? Or maybe you don't know. Maybe you don't know. In regards to like appearances, when you make comments on the pictures,
Oh, really? So do you so Americans, when you talk about appearance, they think about sex.
No, we just think of like, you know.
I think it has to do with like.
Yeah, that's
Because if that haircut, if we're not here and that line of conversation is happening, maybe if the other person is comfortable. But if you do it here, unwarranted, not even happening. It's not actually not that hard. Make it seem like it's a hard thing.
It's just called being nice.
Because
I
we
know,
were.
but I think, especially with like our official representative from
Oh, God.
I'm doing it, trust me, believe me, it's not so much as we have.
I have my title one on, like. As always.
She'll be here anyway.
They need to cover.
Yeah, you're in our country.
Right, it's such a mistake, waste of money.
No, there's like 4 doors in this. Whatever you're saying, you have money, you have a passport, you have a rich father.
No, but I cannot get,
How do I get college admission now?
Here's the thing.
Can you tell me what it's called again?
sometimes you just kind of need to finish it after.
Canada.
Would be helpful.
Transfer to Canada.
Transfer, I'm already a junior.
Transfer to Canada. Very nice.
Okay.
So she won't say anything.
France, Ireland, England, Scotland, the Netherlands, they all have English speaking.
Because if she takes it, trust me, she won't take it. Uncomfortable with the essay? We have a very good.
Oh, and I can't go right after I call you a walking
Actually, I know of that, I know of that, I think they have that.
No, you wouldn't be sued, you would be brought up on sexual discrimination. You would be posted under identification, following an investigation by the judge or Title IX school.
So conservatives were right from the beginning.
No.
You would then be dismissed from the institution.
I'm telling you, it's a good deal. And it's better off if you were just like, honestly, yeah.
Or stop thinking.
Or start thinking about them actually would be. And it's not that hard, it's really not.
It's really hard.
It's not
If
that
you
hard.
have nothing nice to say, don't say anything. You were, I mean, you've been here for what, 5 years?
And it's not even like so much as that you can't say.
No, most of the time I stand
Oh, it's just don't say it.
I'm sorry, I was raised by Europeans, you're not that offensive.
No one's telling you you can't say it, just don't say it.
No, but they won't try to, they don't have a standard.
You need to have a standard.
They don't do that, but they don't have a standard on what you should. Not as clear.
What kind of European language?
Spanish, Italians, Germans, Russians.
Annie.
No. Anything that's like sexualizing, that's not.
Everything is sexualizing because you're referring to it.
I could do 150. It's understanding time, place, and person.
Yeah, in China we call that different stuff.
You're not in China, my
We're
friend.
not in China. It doesn't make me less Chinese. And it's true. I'm not here to be American. Take my money, okay? And don't try to make me do it.
Moving on to.
They're not paying attention.
School breakouts has now ended. We are moving on to item number 15, final business. There is no final business. Moving on to item number 16, announcements. If you'd like me to bring food, I think I'm just gonna bring like 100 chicken nuggets.
Yes.
Oh, and like 1 vegan burrito because I think Julie's the only vegan here. You're vegetarian? So 2 vegan burritos. Wait a burrito. Well, I'll put a poll up.
Dang.
But if you want it to be, I think I'll do it like once a week, and then we'll see like what happens. Maybe.
I think attendance will go on.
That's sad. But, and are there any more announcements at this time?
Yes. Everybody, please stay hydrated, stay healthy. Three of our senators, our fellow senators have fallen today, so.
Fallen?
fallen.
I'm just kidding. This is all things.
Fallen ill. I think he's saying fallen ill. Yes. He didn't even.
I was afraid to a game. This guy has fallen.
I don't think they are all actually here.
Are there any other? Julie, don't you have a event today? Or is it? Oh, is it another day? No.
Next week.
Next week. Yeah.
Also, one more time, anyone who wants to get their headshot done, please fill out the link to me on the Facebook page. Just post it. Oh. Yeah.
Okay. Annie?
Student Programming Funding Board, SPFBs will have a workshop at 8 p.m. today in Emerald Bay. So if you want to figure out how clubs can get funding to our funding board, please go. There will be food and refreshments. And if you don't want to read the long guidelines of SPFB, just go there. We'll give you the main point. Yeah, see you there.
Okay. Any more announcements? Seeing none, I will adjourn this meeting at